The city of Spokane stretched behind me as my rental car rolled onto the familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood. The trees were bare, their skeletal branches scratching against the gray sky, and the autumn wind whispered through the streets like a warning. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, taking a deep breath. It's just a visit, I told myself. Just a visit. But I knew better. My brother Ryan had a way of turning any family gathering into a trial I never wanted to attend. And my parents, well, they had always been experts at turning a blind eye to his arrogance. As I approached our family home, a wave of memories hit me. Laughing in the kitchen with my mom, sneaking cookies from the pantry, the living room where I'd spent countless evenings reading, dreaming, wishing for my life to be something more. Spokane had been my cage, and yet, those streets held the memories of who I once was. I parked in the driveway and stepped out of the car. The air was crisp, biting at my skin. I could hear faint sounds from inside, the low hum of the TV, the distant clink of dishes. My heart pounded. I had built a life far away from here, running my own fashion boutique, carving my path with blood, sweat, and determination. But today, I was stepping back into a place that had never truly accepted me. The front door opened before I could knock. Ryan stood there, tall, his posture rigid, eyes narrowing as if daring me to speak. "Get out of this house," he barked, his voice sharp, slicing through the quiet like a blade. I froze. The words landed on me like a physical blow. My lips parted, but no sound came. My parents were sitting on the couch behind him, their faces serene, almost smug, exchanging a glance that made my stomach twist. Their silence was heavier than any insult. It said more than Ryan ever could. "We've been waiting for this moment." "You... what?" My voice shook, a mixture of disbelief and rising anger. Ryan stepped aside slightly, a predator showing no mercy. "You heard me. Leave." I looked at the walls around me. Walls that had witnessed my childhood tears, my small victories, my countless attempts to please them, only to be overshadowed by his achievements. Memories flashed. My school plays where I got a polite applause while he got standing ovations. Birthdays where my gifts were polite, but his were extravagant. Family vacations where he was the star. The years of favoritism had piled up like dust, settling over my life, whispering that I was nothing, that I never mattered. But this time, something inside me shifted. I straightened my spine, the fire building in my chest. "You don't get to do this," I said, my voice firm, surprising even me. "Not anymore." Ryan laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of humor. "Oh, Denise, always thinking you're stronger than you are. This house, these people, they're mine. And so are the privileges you never earned." I clenched my fists, but my mind was racing faster than my pulse. Privileges? He doesn't even know the half of it. For 2 years, I had been quietly uncovering a truth about this family, a secret buried beneath the glitter of our outward perfection. It was something that could unravel their entire narrative, and today I realized was the day I would put it into motion. "You've had your time in the spotlight," I said, my voice calm but laced with authority. "But I'm not going anywhere until I make sure the truth comes out." My parents shifted, uncomfortable now, their smugness faltering ever so slightly. Ryan's face tightened, his confidence slipping. I saw the cracks. I had been preparing for this moment for years, learning, planning, gathering pieces of a puzzle that would leave them exposed. "You don't understand," Ryan said, stepping closer, his tone now dangerously low. "This isn't about the truth. This is about respect. You don't belong here." I smiled, a thin, controlled smile that hid the storm inside me. "Respect is earned, and you've spent your entire life taking it, manipulating it, hoarding it. But I've earned mine. I've built my life without needing anyone's permission, and I'm not afraid to fight for it." The room fell into tense silence. The TV continued its background noise, oblivious to the family drama unfolding around it. The scent of old carpet and polished wood filled the air, mingling with the tension so thick it could be sliced with a knife. I looked at the faces of my parents, the people who had watched Ryan's arrogance grow unchecked, and realized something crucial. They were complicit. Their silence, their glances, their subtle nods had always reinforced his power. But the secret I held, the hidden documents, the truth about inheritance, the lies that had been whispered behind closed doors, was my weapon, and today, it was ready to be unleashed. I came here thinking it would be a simple visit, I continued, my eyes locked on Ryan's. But I see now it's more than that. This is a power play, a declaration that I should remain invisible. Well, I'm done being invisible. Ryan's jaw tightened. You think you can just walk in here and… I interrupted, voice rising slightly, filled with conviction. No, I know I can, because for once I'm not the scared kid hiding in the corner. I am Denise Brooks. I have fought, I have built, I have survived. And today, I am standing here to claim what is mine. You and everyone else will see me for who I am. A tense beat passed. Then for the first time in years, I felt the shift. The energy in the room changed, the balance of power wavered. Ryan's confident facade trembled. My parents' smugness faltered. And for the first time, I realized something that terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. I had the upper hand. I took a step forward, closer to the center of the room, the place that had once been my cage. My voice dropped to a measured, almost whispering threat, yet full of undeniable power. This family has kept secrets for too long, and I know them all. Ryan's eyes widened, just slightly, before narrowing again. My parents exchanged another glance, panic flickering for the briefest moment before they masked it with calm. But I knew. I could see it in their eyes. They knew the game was over. And as I stood there, heart pounding, the city of Spokane silent outside, I realized that this visit, the visit that had seemed ordinary, was about to become the first chapter in a war I had been destined to fight. The homecoming had turned into a battlefield, and I was ready. Because for the first time, I was no longer the overlooked kid. I was Denise Brooks, and I was ready to reclaim everything they had tried to take from me. After the initial shock of Ryan's command, my mind raced. Every step I had taken in life, every victory, every struggle, had led me to this moment. Standing in the living room of my childhood home, I felt the weight of the past pressing down. But instead of breaking me, it sharpened my resolve. Ryan thought he had power over me, thought he could intimidate me back into the shadows. But he was wrong. I needed space. I couldn't fight effectively in front of him yet. I pretended to smooth my blouse and glance casually around the room, giving nothing away, yet every nerve in my body was alert. My eyes fell on the old family desk, a massive oak relic that had belonged to my father for decades. Years ago, I'd sat there, scribbling homework, doodling dreams, hiding notes from my parents in its drawers. Today, it called to me differently. Not as a piece of nostalgia, but as a potential vault for revelation. 2 years ago, when I first started suspecting that something was off about the way Ryan had inherited everything, attention, money, influence, I had begun quietly investigating. It had started small, overheard phone calls, bills left on the counter, whispers in my parents' private office. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, I had pieced together a secret that would make anyone's jaw drop. It wasn't just favoritism, it was a calculated, deliberate cover-up. There was a hidden family trust, a multi-million-dollar inheritance my parents had quietly manipulated to favor Ryan, erasing my existence in the process. Legal loopholes, forged signatures, and carefully crafted documents had placed everything under his name. I had spent nights poring over files, tracking property deeds, tax returns, old emails, and bank statements. And eventually, I had found it. Undeniable proof that Ryan and our parents had systematically excluded me. Now, standing in the same living room, I felt that familiar thrill, the kind that comes with knowing a secret so potent it can shift the balance of power. I just had to be careful. Reveal too much too soon, and Ryan might destroy the evidence or turn my parents fully against me. Reveal too little, and I'd lose the impact I needed. I excused myself to the kitchen under the pretense of grabbing water. The smell of old coffee and the faint aroma of cinnamon from the morning lingered, oddly comforting. My heart beat faster as I opened the small drawer beside the sink, though it was only a decoy. The real documents, the culmination of 2 years of careful digging, were safely tucked into my bag. Hidden under false bottoms, encrypted on my laptop, and copied multiple times, they were my insurance. Returning to the living room, I let my gaze linger on my parents. Their faces, so carefully controlled, showed the faintest cracks. My mother's lips twitched, an involuntary movement that betrayed her nerves. My father, ever the stoic one, shifted slightly in his chair. They had underestimated me, always had. "Denise," Ryan said, voice dripping with condescension, "you're imagining things. There's no hidden fortune, no secret trust. You've always been the dreamer, and that's fine, but leave reality to those who live in it." I smiled, a cold, precise smile that made my teeth ache from tension. "Is that what you think? That I'm imagining things?" "I've seen the documents, Ryan. Every signature, every transaction, every hidden account. You've built your empire on my exclusion, and it ends now." Ryan's face twisted, a mix of anger and disbelief. "You can't prove anything. Even if you had—" I interrupted him, my voice low, deliberate. "I don't need to prove it to you. I only need to make sure the right people know. Lawyers, auditors, anyone with eyes. And you won't have the chance to manipulate it anymore." My parents' faces went pale. I could see the old shame flicker in their eyes, but it was quickly replaced by self-preserving calm. They had always been manipulators, skilled at controlling perception. But I had uncovered the skeletons in their carefully curated closet, and now, for the first time, I could hold them to account. Ryan leaned forward, his arrogance replaced with panic. "You think you can just walk in here with some papers and take what's mine? This house, this family's legacy? It's mine." I took a slow breath. "Your legacy is built on lies, and I'm not here to destroy the family. I'm here to restore fairness, to restore truth. If you'd been fair all along, none of this would have happened. But you weren't, and now you have to face the consequences." The room fell into tense silence. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. My parents exchanged a look. One last attempt to silently negotiate, to contain the storm I had just unleashed. But the balance had shifted. Ryan was rattled, unsure how to respond. And I, for the first time in my life, felt the exhilaration of power. I stepped closer, letting the gravity of my presence fill the room. "I've lived outside this house for years, built a life from the ground up while you two played favorites. But that ends today. You underestimated me, ignored me, and tried to erase me. But I see everything now, and you will pay for your deception, not with anger, not with vengeance, but with the truth." My brother's hands trembled slightly. My mother's eyes glimmered with fear. My father, ever the calm observer, looked away, unable to meet my gaze. The decades of favoritism, of whispers and lies, were crumbling before me, and I knew I had only just begun. For the first time, I felt my childhood self, the scared, overlooked kid, fade away, replaced by someone stronger, someone fearless, someone who would fight not just for recognition, but for justice. I imagined the next steps: gathering legal counsel, presenting the documents, making sure the hidden trust could no longer be used against me. My boutique, my business, my independence, they were proof of my resilience, proof that I could thrive without their approval. "You've always underestimated me," I said, voice calm but sharp as a knife. But no more. I am not your little sister to be dismissed. I am Denise Brooks. And now, you will all see me for who I am, and for what you tried to take from me. Ryan's face flushed red, his fury bubbling, but I ignored it. I had the proof. I had the plan. I had the upper hand. And for the first time in years, I felt the intoxicating rush of control. The hidden truth, once buried under years of lies and manipulation, was now my weapon. And as I glanced around the room, seeing the flicker of panic in my parents' eyes and the rage in Ryan's, I knew something else. The battle had only just begun. The living room of my childhood home, once a place of comfort, had transformed into the stage for a confrontation I had long prepared for. And I, Denise Brooks, was ready, not just to fight, but to win. The air in the living room felt electric, thick with tension. It was as though the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the storm I was about to unleash. My parents' smug masks had slipped, replaced with expressions I'd never thought I'd see: fear, uncertainty, and a fleeting glimmer of guilt. Ryan, my golden child brother, looked as if he were teetering on the edge, a man who had built his entire identity on the idea of dominance, suddenly facing someone who refused to cower. I set my bag down on the couch beside me, careful to place it where Ryan could see it. Inside were the documents, the pieces of truth I had collected over 2 long years: bank statements, emails, property deeds, legal filings, and contracts that proved the systematic exclusion of my name from the family trust. These papers were not just evidence, they were my weapon, my shield, my promise that the years of invisibility, of being overlooked and dismissed, were over. "I've waited a long time for this moment," I began, my voice steady, calm, almost unnervingly so. "And I'm not leaving until I say what needs to be said." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Say what? That you're imagining things again? That somehow the world owes you what you didn't earn?" I shook my head slowly, a small, controlled smile on my lips. "No, I'm here to show you exactly how wrong you are." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, placing it carefully on the coffee table. The gold lettering glinted under the soft overhead light. I could see Ryan's eyes flicker with recognition and panic. My parents leaned forward slightly, a collective instinct to control the damage, but it was too late. "These documents," I said, opening the folder, "show the hidden family trust. They show every transaction, every account, every decision made to favor you, Ryan, while erasing me. Do you know how it feels to grow up knowing you're always the second choice? To watch your brother praised for everything while you're expected to remain quiet and grateful? To know that your parents deliberately made you invisible?" Silence fell over the room, heavy and suffocating. Ryan's face darkened with anger, and for the first time I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. My parents exchanged a glance, the kind that said, "We underestimated her. We didn't think she'd go this far." "You've been planning this for years," my father said finally, his voice tight. "You can't just—" "I can, and I have," I interrupted. "I've spent 2 years gathering the truth, documenting every lie, every act of favoritism, every manipulation, and now it's all here. You can deny it, you can argue, you can try to intimidate me, but the evidence doesn't lie, and neither do I." Ryan slammed his hand on the table, rattling the documents. "You think you can humiliate me in my own house? You think you can destroy me?" I leaned forward, my eyes locked on his. "I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to reclaim what's mine, to make sure the truth is acknowledged, to make sure you can't erase me anymore." For the first time, I noticed the tremor in his hands, the barely contained rage and fear. All those years of thinking himself untouchable, of believing he was invincible in the family hierarchy, had led to this moment of vulnerability. "Do you even understand what this means?" he spat. "Do you realize the damage you're trying to do?" I shook my head slowly. "I understand perfectly, and I'm ready to accept it, because the damage you've done to me all these years is far worse than anything I might do to you now. You've built your life on deceit and favoritism, and it ends here." My mother gasped softly, clutching her hands together. "Denise, this is... this is outrageous. We've always..." "Always what?" I snapped. "Ignored me? Pretended I didn't exist? Praised him while pretending I was just adequate? That's not a family. That's a dictatorship built on lies." Ryan lunged forward, voice rising. "You've gone mad! You don't know what you're doing!" I stood my ground, unwavering. "I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm claiming my place in this family. I'm demanding what's rightfully mine. And I won't leave this room until you all understand that." The room was silent again, the tension almost unbearable. Even the air seemed heavy, pressing down on us. My parents' faces were pale, Ryan's fury simmering beneath the surface. But I could feel it. The shift. The invisible line that had always separated me from power, from recognition, had finally been crossed. I reached into my bag again and pulled out a second set of papers, contracts I had prepared with my lawyer, ready to legally challenge the trust, the inheritance, and the assets my family had tried to hide. I spread them carefully across the coffee table, the crisp paper a stark contrast to the chaos in the room. "These are the steps I've already begun taking," I said. "You can ignore them if you want, but it won't change the fact that I'm no longer invisible. I'm no longer the overlooked sister. I'm Denise Brooks, and I'm taking what's mine, legally, morally, and rightfully." Ryan's face twisted, a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You can't. You think the law is on your side? You think anyone will believe you over us?" I held his gaze unwaveringly. "I don't need them to believe me. I need them to see the truth, and the truth doesn't lie. You've had your time, your advantage, your golden child status. But this ends now." My parents exchanged another glance, a silent negotiation. But I wasn't buying it. Their complicity, their years of favoritism, had fueled Ryan's arrogance. And now, I was the one holding the evidence, the knowledge, the power. "I am done being overlooked," I said, voice steady, fierce. "I am done being ignored, and I am done letting you define who I am. The past is over, the truth is here. And the moment I walked through that door, I decided I would not be erased again." Ryan clenched his fists, and I could see the tension in his shoulders. My mother's hands were trembling. My father's expression, the once unshakable calm, was now strained, almost human. The confrontation had reached its peak, and yet I was calm, because for the first time, I knew I had the upper hand. "This isn't about revenge," I added softly, almost quietly, but with steel in my voice. "This is about justice, for me, for the truth, and the moment you acknowledge it, the moment you face it, we can begin to heal, or at least, you can stop pretending that your deception will last forever." Ryan's face contorted in a mix of fury and fear. My parents were silent now, unable to find words. And I realized something crucial. This confrontation, this battle of truth and deception, had changed everything. Nothing would ever be the same again. For the first time in my life, I was no longer powerless in this house. I had prepared, I had planned, and I had confronted. The confrontation was only the beginning, but it was decisive. And as I stood there, documents on the table, my eyes burning with determination, I knew one thing for certain: the battle was far from over, but I would win. The confrontation had left the living room charged with tension, but the battle was only beginning. Standing there, my heart still racing, I realized that words alone wouldn't be enough. Ryan and my parents were clever, manipulative, and used to controlling the narrative. To truly reclaim what was mine, I needed strategy, proof, and allies who understood the weight of truth. Back in my boutique in Spokane, the familiar hum of sewing machines and the scent of fabric comforted me, but my mind was consumed with plans. Every step I had taken to build this life, every early morning, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, had led to this moment. I had fought for independence once. Now I had to fight for justice. I began with the documents. Over the past 2 years, I had meticulously copied every account statement, every email, every contract related to the hidden family trust. They were encrypted, backed up, and ready for legal review. Now, I would deploy them. The first call was to my lawyer, a woman sharp as a razor and unafraid of complicated family politics. I explained the situation calmly, laying out the evidence, the trust manipulations, and Ryan's attempts to claim everything for himself. She listened, occasionally asking for clarification, but never doubting the weight of my findings. "This is significant," she said finally. "You've got proof that's irrefutable. We can start the legal process to challenge the trust and the assets, but you have to be prepared. It won't be quick, and it won't be easy. This family has resources." I nodded. I had expected nothing less. I had also prepared for the emotional war. Families like mine didn't fight fair. They attacked credibility, reputation, and even sanity. I had documented every interaction, recorded phone calls, and kept copies of every written communication. They couldn't spin it against me. Next, I contacted an old friend in finance who had access to property records and inheritance filings. Quietly, I asked her to trace transactions, cross-check account details, and verify the patterns I had already uncovered. Within hours, she confirmed everything. Ryan had benefited from a long chain of manipulations, with every step carefully orchestrated to exclude me. Armed with this confirmation, I started the process of reaching out to the right authorities, legal, financial, and even ethical oversight committees. Each call, each email, each request felt like stacking a tower of inevitability. By the time I was done for the day, I had set the stage for a confrontation that would leave my family reeling. But I couldn't ignore the emotional component. This wasn't just about money, it was about years of favoritism, erasure, and betrayal. I needed to prepare myself for the confrontation that would inevitably follow. I spent hours pacing my apartment, rehearsing statements, imagining every response Ryan and my parents could give. Fear tried to creep, in the fear of retaliation, of public embarrassment, but I pushed it back. I had survived far worse. The next day, I returned to Spokane with purpose. I wasn't here to negotiate, I was here to enforce accountability. The moment I walked into the house, Ryan's eyes met mine, and I could see the tension ripple through him. My parents were more composed, but only just. They had underestimated me once. They would not make that mistake again. I laid out the next steps calmly. "I've contacted lawyers, auditors, and authorities," I said. "I've verified every transaction, every account. Your manipulation will not stand. You have the opportunity to acknowledge the truth and avoid unnecessary escalation." Ryan scoffed, but I could see his composure cracking. "You think you've already won?" he asked, voice tight with barely contained rage. I shook my head. "No, this isn't about winning. It's about justice. It's about restoring balance to a system you broke. You've had decades of advantage. Now, the scales are shifting." Over the following weeks, I executed my plan meticulously. Legal notices were served, documents were submitted, and auditors began reviewing the family accounts. Every meeting, every phone call, every letter was a calculated move, designed to leave no room for deceit or delay. At home, the tension was palpable. Ryan and my parents avoided eye contact, whispered behind closed doors, and grew increasingly desperate to regain control. But it was too late. I had done the groundwork. I had the proof, the documentation, and the allies ready to support my case. The boutique became my refuge, the place where I could retreat, plan, and regain strength. I spent hours strategizing with my lawyer, poring over every clause, anticipating every counter move. I had learned over the years that battles with family were fought not just with evidence, but with patience, endurance, and psychological strategy. One evening, my lawyer called with news. The initial review was conclusive. "Denise, this is airtight. They have no room to maneuver. You've done everything right. Now it's a waiting game and a test of endurance, but the law is on your side." I allowed myself a small smile. Victory wasn't immediate. It never is in these matters. But the foundation had been laid. Ryan's control over the family assets was faltering, my parents' complicity exposed, and I had the momentum firmly in my hands. Yet, as I sat alone in my boutique, I realized the battle was as much about emotional resilience as it was legal strategy. My family had underestimated me for decades. They had mocked my independence, belittled my successes, and assumed I would never challenge them. But now, every careful move, every calculated step, was proving them wrong. The house, once a place of childhood dreams and suffocating favoritism, had become the stage for accountability. I was no longer a passive observer. I was the architect of justice, the executor of truth, and the guardian of my own destiny. Ryan's eventual confrontation was inevitable. He would try to intimidate, manipulate, or bargain. My parents would attempt to mediate, to persuade, to control the narrative. But I was ready. For the first time in my life, I felt untouchable, not because of arrogance, but because I had prepared, because I had evidence, because I had strategy, and because I refused to let the past dictate my future. The battle for justice was underway, and I was leading it. The weeks of tension, strategy, and relentless preparation had culminated in a moment that I had been envisioning for years. The family home, once a place of childhood comfort, was now the center of reckoning. Ryan had grown increasingly tense, his arrogance replaced by unease. My parents, who had long masked their complicity, were forced to confront the consequences of their favoritism. And I, Denise Brooks, was standing at the center of it all, calm, resolute, and unafraid. The legal processes had moved faster than I anticipated. The auditor's findings confirmed my suspicions, leaving no room for denial. Every hidden account, every manipulated trust fund, every exclusion of my name from inheritance documents had been documented. The evidence was airtight. The truth was finally undeniable. I returned to the house with a sense of purpose that bordered on liberation. The autumn sunlight fell through the windows, painting the room in warm, almost ironic light. It was a far cry from the suffocating atmosphere I had experienced as a child, yet the tension in the air was unmistakable. Ryan and my parents were waiting, their faces a mixture of fear, guilt, and defiance. "I've received confirmation from the auditors," I said, setting the documents on the coffee table. "Everything is accounted for. The hidden trust has been exposed, and your manipulation cannot continue. Legally, morally, and ethically, I have every right to claim my share." Ryan's face turned red with anger, veins throbbing on his forehead. You can't just take what's mine. This is my inheritance. You have no claim." I leaned back in the chair, meeting his glare with unshakable confidence. "It's not yours. It was never yours to claim at the expense of fairness. You've built your life on the exclusion of others. I'm not here to destroy you. I'm here to restore balance, and that balance is mine as much as it is yours." My parents shifted uncomfortably on the couch, unable to maintain the facade of control. "Denise, we didn't mean," my mother began, but I cut her off. "No, you meant exactly what you did. Your complicity, your favoritism, your silence. It all led here, and now you have to face it." The room fell silent for a long moment, the weight of years of lies and betrayal pressing down on us. Ryan's fists clenched and unclenched, his pride warring, with the undeniable reality of the evidence before him. My parents exchanged glances, their composure faltering under the pressure. I stood and walked around the room slowly, letting my presence command the space. For years, I've been the overlooked sibling, the one everyone assumed would stay in the shadows. But I've spent my life building something real, my boutique, my independence, my success. None of it came from you. None of it came from favoritism. It came from hard work, perseverance, and determination. And now, I am reclaiming what was unfairly taken from me. Ryan's voice cracked as he tried to assert dominance. You think this proves you're better than me? You think success is about documents and lawyers? I shook my head. Success isn't about proving I'm better. It's about claiming what I deserve. You've been blinded by arrogance and privilege for too long. That's why you never saw me as an equal. But now, the truth is clear. My parents' faces fell, the years of carefully constructed appearances unraveling. My father's stern expression softened slightly, a flicker of remorse in his eyes, though pride still kept his lips pressed together. My mother's hands trembled in her lap, a silent acknowledgement that the balance had shifted irreversibly. I opened a folder and handed copies of the auditor's report and legal filings to both of them. Here, this isn't open to negotiation or debate. It's the culmination of your favoritism, your secrecy, and your attempts to control the narrative. And now, you must acknowledge it and act accordingly. Ryan stared at the papers, his arrogance replaced by helpless fury. This can't be legal. I smiled faintly. It is legal. And that's the difference you've never understood. In the days that followed, the family dynamics shifted dramatically. Ryan's control over the household assets diminished. My parents, humbled and forced to confront the consequences of their favoritism, were quieter, less controlling. And I, for the first time, felt an immense sense of relief and empowerment. I continued to run my boutique, pouring myself into my work with renewed energy. But now, my personal life had changed profoundly. I no longer felt the invisible chains of childhood bias holding me back. I could walk into the family home, into social gatherings, even into casual encounters with Ryan, without fear or apprehension. I was visible, respected, and recognized for my worth. One afternoon, I stood in my boutique, looking out the large windows at the Spokane streets I had once known as my cage. Now they felt like open paths, full of potential and opportunity. My phone buzzed with messages from colleagues and friends congratulating me on navigating the family battle successfully. And deep inside, I realized something powerful. Victory wasn't just legal, it was personal. I had claimed my place, not out of vengeance, but out of justice. I had faced the very people who had tried to diminish me and emerged stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. The final confrontation with Ryan came quietly. He approached me one evening at the boutique, avoiding the eyes of my parents. "Denise," he said, voice subdued, I suppose you won this." I studied him carefully, my heart steady. "I didn't win against you. I claimed what was mine. And now it's time for both of us to move forward, if that's possible." He nodded stiffly, a mixture of regret and acceptance. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't even reconciliation, but it was acknowledgement. And for me, that was enough. Life had changed, irreversibly. The boutique flourished, my independence solidified, and my confidence soared. I no longer measured myself by Ryan's shadow or my parents' approval. I was Denise Brooks, resilient, empowered, and unapologetically in control of my own destiny. Looking back, I realized that the journey had been about far more than legal battles or inheritance. It had been about reclaiming myself, my voice, and my rightful place in a family that had tried to erase me. And in doing so, I discovered a truth more valuable than any inheritance: the strength to define my life, my worth, and my future on my own terms. As I closed the boutique for the evening and stepped outside into the crisp Spokane air, I felt a profound sense of liberation. The streets that once held memories of pain and invisibility now stretched before me, open and inviting. I walked forward without hesitation, each step a declaration of the life I had fought for, and the life I would continue to build. Free from the shadows of the past, for the first time I was not just surviving, I was thriving. I had reclaimed my life,